Hey there, this is James Moffitt with Liberty and Gun Rights Podcast. I'd like to invite you to support this podcast by sending a donation to my PayPal account at jcmoffitt at icloud.com. That's jcmoffitt at icloud.com. Or you can also visit my website at https://liberty and gun rights podcast.buzzsprout.com. That's BUZZ sprout.com. You can choose to be either a sponsor or a subscriber to the podcast. Your support will go towards underwriting the cost of producing this podcast. You can contact me with any questions at lgrinfo@proton.me. That's lgrinfo@proton.me. Thank you for listening to these podcast episodes, and now to the feature presentation. Hello and welcome to Liberty and Gun Rights Podcast. My name is James Moffitt and I will be your host. Today we have a returning guest speaker, Kenny Dupar. He's a retired Lieutenant Colonel from the Army. He's the author of Scoundrels in Iraq. Hey Kenny, how are you doing?
Doing well.
Good.
Thank you for having me back.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to introduce yourself to the listening audience?
My name's Kenny, or Colonel Kenny, has a nice ring to it. I retired 8 years ago now, and I'm retired. I'm living in East Tennessee, God's country, as they say, and I'm working on my third novel. But in the meantime, I wanted to get into podcast land and talk about my book and my first novel, The Scoundrels in Iraq, An Engineer's Adventures, because it's history. And learning about it and how it changed the military is important as far as going forward is concerned. Whether, if you want to say it should never have happened or never again. We need to know what the context was. But the armchair generalship only goes so far. It gets a little bit boring. It's an old phrase, where the rubber meets the road. It's those human stories and the consequences on real people that really pushed me along to write it. I had these crazy vignettes running in my brain because I did some unusual things when I was in Iraq, the first time especially. I went back the second time to atone for my sins, and in between I was training troops. So I lived the experience from 9/11 until we finally retrograded out of there.
Right.
What was your impression? I mean, you said in our warm-up that as far as the United States not being or should not be the world's policeman, like President Truman warned us about way back when, one of my favorite presidents.
Well, I don't know. It seems that we are quick to inject ourselves into other cultures and other skirmishes or wars or conflicts or campaigns or whatever you want to talk about. Like, as far as the Middle East is concerned, they've been fighting each other and killing each other for decades, centuries, not just decades, but centuries. And I just really don't see that we can solve that problem. Right, we certainly can affect it. We can certainly change the projection or the trajectory of those conflicts by being there. We certainly bring a lot of military might and troops on the ground and hardware and technology and all of that. Right, but no matter how effective we are as a force in these skirmishes or wars. Like, just take the Korean conflict or Vietnam. My dad was he was a drill instructor, and he went to both of those conflicts. He never really talked about them because I think war is, from what I understand, ugly. It's having people shoot at you and try to kill you, and you having to kill other humans is it's probably very difficult. It's very it takes a toll on an individual, I would imagine. And so there's a human cost there on both sides. Us and the enemy. Or whoever the enemy might be. I watched Pearl Harbor recently again. The movie and with Ben Affleck, and there are no winners in war, right? There's a lot of human cost, and even if you survive it, even if you make it out alive physically, there's PTSD, there's psychological and emotional traumas that happen to people. You can't come out of those sort of situations as a person and not expect to be affected in some way by it, right?
You're going to be changed.
Oh yeah, I never went to war, so the closest I ever got to war was being in law enforcement, maybe. And civilian law enforcement is what is it? It's like 99% boredom and 1% of sheer terror, right?
Well,
And
I would give yourself a lot more credit because I look at law enforcement as you're, in a sense, if you have that weapon issued to you, in a sense, you're on duty almost all the time. I mean, the responsibility that goes along with that is an important part of it. Of course, I can't speak for what your father's experiences are. You'd have to try to figure out what units he was in and that type of thing. But for the majority of service people, like you said, 99% of the time you're bored, and 1% you're terrified. Depending on your job and what it is that you're doing, you may not hear a shot fired in anger ever. I was in the I was in the Army Reserve for 17 years. And then my Super Bowl happened, and I was on active duty in essence for 8 years, and then I ended my career in the reserves. But I didn't want to be that infantry officer. They branched me infantry, and I saw the light and became an engineer. So I was not going to compete with other men as far as being tough is concerned and humping it on my back or jumping out of perfectly good airplanes. And I was able to serve in a different capacity, building things, essentially, contract administration. And so I think one of the perceptions is that people who haven't had the experience is that my little Johnny, my little Janie is out there, pulling triggers, kicking in doors. There's infantrymen like calling it running and gunning. And so most people don't do that. I mean, we're built around the infantry in an important sense, but most of the experiences of service people is not these harrowing experiences that obviously could really mess you up, and well, they would be traumatic. But another important thing to remember, though, James, is that a lot of people come into the service and they've already had traumatic experiences before. Maybe it's the military that helps straighten them out, but it's their own childhood that really is where the bad stuff happened.
so you inspired me to dig out some of my dad's military stuff.
Cool.
Here's a Department of the Army This is to certify that the Secretary of the Army has awarded the Army Commendation Medal to Sergeant First Class James C. Moffitt, United States Army, for meritorious service at Fort Polk, Louisiana during the period 12 March 1969 to December 31st, 1969. So, probably can't really see it.
Yeah, so that's a Army Commendation Medal, and you get an ARCOM when you are good at your job. I mean, if you're responsible for a lot of people, training programs, whatever the case may be, it's a big attaboy.
Right.
It's
It's got a citation. I'm not going to read it, but he was a professional soldier, from what I understand. And somewhere, I have a whole bunch of medals that he won. He had a Purple Heart, and
well, that tells you something right there. I mean, if you receive the Purple Heart, you should be able to look up the circumstances behind that.
Here is his German. Oh, wait a minute. This is my sister's German passport. I told you. Can you hear me?
Yes,
I'm
absolutely.
from the mic. My sister and I were adopted in Schaffenburg, Germany. And anyway, this is her German passport. She's no longer with us, but that's her German passport.
Yeah. Cool.
And you'll see it's dated December of 1963. Going down memory lane here.
You said something, James, that I wanted to touch upon. One of my most vivid memories from the first Gulf War, which I describe as the first game of a doubleheader.
Yeah.
I went to school at Wisconsin, so that's in Madison, Wisconsin, an island surrounded by a sea of reality. At any rate, it's a big school. Anyway, I saw some graffiti once in the lead up. 7th Infantry, 1963. Wow.
Yeah, it actually has. I haven't really noticed this, but it's got pictures in here. I guess this is a photo of him and his platoon or whatever.
Yeah. I wonder if they were straight leg or if they probably weren't cavalry yet.
Alpha Company, 3rd Platoon.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I interrupted you. Go
So
ahead.
that was the infantry is a young man's game, and I was in it for the long haul. I wanted to make sure I got over 20. But anyway, I saw this graffiti that said "Die for Exxon sucker" because Saddam Hussein had invaded Kuwait.
Right.
And why did we care, James? Because
of oil.
Because of oil. Right.
Follow the money. Yep.
And so
we're still paying gobs of money for oil today.
Needlessly. I thought that when I made a joke when at the second game of the doubleheader, the one I was involved in, if George W. Bush was going to rename Iraq New Texas and take all the oil, but that wasn't that wasn't what people had in mind. It was that dreaded term, nation building. And I bet that this might be a term that would light you up too. What do you think about nation building, James, in a general sense?
I think that I was looking for my dad's medals. I don't know where they're at right now. I think we need to worry about what's going on inside our borders, right? I think that we need to protect our own borders and utilize our military for protecting our borders and our citizens. And I guess that there's some benefit to helping to rebuild infrastructure of countries that are, have been unduly attacked or whatever, like the things that you did over in Iraq. I think it's honorable that y'all were able to build schools and hospitals and provide infrastructure in training to a third world country that desperately needed it, right? So I don't have a problem with what we did so much as maybe I have a problem with why we got involved to begin with. Because just imagine if we get attacked. How many countries do you think are going to come to our aid, right? How many countries, especially third world countries, are equipped or able to, come to our aid? I think that if we ever come under attack, it's going to be a nuclear war. I think somebody's just going to start bombing us. And I think the only reason that hasn't happened is because there's a lot of countries, nations that have nuclear arsenals, and I think everybody that has any common sense or intelligence in their brain understands that nuclear war, nobody wins. And yeah, you may win the war, you might level the country you're going after, but what are you going to have? It's going to be uninhabitable for a decade. You're not going to. It's not like you're going to win anything other than proving a point. And what's the point? I can push a button, and kill millions of people. So did I answer your question? Nation building.
Nation building. Well, let me ask you this. I mean, I remember where I was when 9/11 happened. I happened to be doing concrete form work at the Milwaukee's International Airport, and all of a sudden, and there was, we were building part of a parking garage, nothing glorious, and all of a sudden there was no air traffic at all. And the guy I was working next to me said, Saddam Hussein. And I said, Osama bin Laden. And he said, who's that? Did you get the feeling in the days afterward or immediately that someone was going to get smoked? That this was an act of war and therefore the United States was going to do something?
Oh yeah, yep. I was my family. We were living in Goose Creek at that time, which we still are. But anyway, my next door neighbor called, who was my landlord. She says, you need to turn on the TV. I'm like, what for? She says, you just need to turn on your TV. And I'm like, oh, shit, okay. So I turned it on, and the first plane had already hit one of the towers. And I don't even think initially that I knew that a plane had hit it. I just knew the thing was, a lot of smoke billowing out of the top of the thing. And then as I listened to the news commentary, I recognized anyhow. Then I watched we all watched in horror as the second plane hit the second tower.
And boy, did that change us. Then it was the global war on terrorism, and they came up with FISA courts and being able to, like they say, the terrorist only has to get lucky one time. Preventing it, you got to be correct 100% of the time. I think that 9/11 certainly changed us, and the intelligence, it seems, that led us to invade Iraq was faulty. But when you're wearing the green tuxedo, as they used to say, you dance where they tell you. It's like you're in the service, no one's going to ask you, hey, what do you think about the political ramifications if the United States bombs the blah, 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 blah. No one's going to ask you that.
Oh, of course not.
Because nobody cares. That's not your gig. It's like, okay, I'm in this unit, and this unit's mission is to provide infrastructure, to build stuff, or maybe it is in the infantry, and you're going to go hold a position or what have you. It gets complicated in a hurry. And the plane, I described that after combat operations were over in May of 2003 in Iraq, that the rest of the plan was written on a cocktail napkin. I really don't think people there was a clue as far as what to do after that. I mean, there were follow-on forces for stability operations, but it took a long time for, and I don't think U.S. forces did a very good job as far as um, doing the civilian administration in Iraq. And then the counterinsurgency happened. Let me ask you this: what characters did you like in the book? What kind of stuck out? Because I'm telling I'm giving you my adventures, the odd things that I did, like the you read up through the first couple of chapters and you listened to the rest of the book.
Right.
So, like the White Don King of Baghdad. Did that kind of strike you?
The what now?
The chapter called "The White Don King of Baghdad," where I built a boxing ring.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I thought that was very interesting, and that was a good way for people to blow off a lot of steam.
And the best fights were the female soldiers. If you can get two women to beat up on each other,
Right.
men will. You could throw money on the ground and they wouldn't care. They're going to watch two women beat up on each other. So it was tremendous fun. I accidentally became my battalion's morale officer. Right before the 4th of July, I'm like, what are we going to do for a party? You know, are we going to celebrate the 4th of July? And when you're overseas in theater, you work every single day because there's nothing really much else to do. And so I was on a one-man crusade to build volleyball pits, baseball diamonds, basketball courts, a running track, things of this nature so that people could blow off steam. But the most popular was actually watching people, you know, if you got a bloody nose, that was very entertaining. Kind of a weird mix of controlled violence in a war zone. It's a fine old tradition too.
Well, let's see. Book. Let me think about it. Oh, the front of the cover with
Yeah.
the woman with the purple finger. So my wife kept asking me, "What is that? What is the woman with the purple finger?" I said, "I don't know." I had no idea, but now I know it's that they were able to go vote, and that's how
Yeah.
they marked their finger to show that they did vote, and so I guess it was a sign of honor and pride for them, because in that culture, women don't have a whole lot of rights or freedoms. So
That's true-ish, I think.
ish, okay,
Well, I'd like to correct something that you had said earlier.
okay,
You described Iraq as being a third world country. It's actually like a second world country
oh,
in
okay,
that Baghdad and that area is the Ivy League of the Arab world. You know, so where do we get our arithmetic from? It was from mathematicians who lived in Baghdad 900 years ago, for example. So they're very well educated
okay,
engineers, medicine, poets, and yet they're still living like maybe it's just because it's so damn hot all the time. But you'd think that for a civilization that's been there for 5,000 years, you should have flying cars. You know, you should just have everything figured out by now. You have 5,000 years,
right,
right? But they're not stupid people
right,
by any regard, and wheeling and dealing with these people, you know, as far as negotiating, oh, they're gonna clean your clock. So they're very sophisticated people, but culturally, you're right. It's the Sunni Shia schism, and you got to bear that in mind. And you asked that question: what did the United States think they were going to do to try to cure this, or have these two groups get along after 1,400 years of savaging each other? No. But when Saddam was gone, he was in the minority. The demographics are unusual where you have Arabs and you have Kurds. And Kurds are not Turks, they're not Armenian, they're not Persian, they're Kurds. And they've been
Right.
conquered by everybody going back thousands of years. And they don't have their own country. They're the largest ethnicity that doesn't have their own country. And so within the Arab world, you have Sunni and Shia. 90% of the world's Muslims are Sunni. 1/10 are Shia, like in Persia and Iran. And so these divisions run very, very deep. And the woman with the purple finger, they're from the Shia sect. And so they were just starting to be able to, well, not just starting, but she was proud that she got to vote and help determine her own future.
Right.
Since the tyrant is now gone and the Muslims, the Shia, who have been horribly oppressed by their... It's like if there were Catholics and Protestants, and if 1/3 of the United States were Catholics and 2/3 were Protestants, and the Catholics just brutally suppressed the Protestants, and then there was a war, and all of a sudden the situation changed. It flip-flopped. And now all of a sudden the Protestants are in charge, and so the violence, the militias that came up and terrorized, their former oppressors. It was bad. In Baghdad, you would have gangs running around, evening the scores, and what they would like to do is take your handy dandy cordless drill, right, and drill into people's kneecaps.
My God.
As a torture, and it was just a brutal existence for them coming out of the, where's Waldo? Where was Saddam Hussein? We didn't know where Saddam Hussein was for almost a year. Well, it was about 6 months. What was your idea? What was your feeling as far as what the United States was doing in Afghanistan, going after Al Qaeda and all that type of stuff? Was it on your radar?
I mean, I was aware of it, like everybody else, just kind of following it on NBC Nightly News and the CNN and all of that. What did we say? There was we always laughingly said that what was that war correspondent's name? He was real famous. Had a mustache. Anyway, I was like the U.S. military should have let not war correspondents, but investigative reporters. They could find anybody, right? I was like, why don't you just let them go find him? They could find him in probably 12 hours. There wouldn't be no problem. But anyway, like I said, it was kind of a joke. But
yeah, the interesting, well, PTSD was not in our lexicon. No one talked about PTSD before 9/11.
Right.
We didn't. I guess we just didn't consider it. But now people are thinking.
I think it was known. I think people that came back from Vietnam and Korea certainly experienced it. It just wasn't as widely talked about.
It was known, but were there any therapies for it? I mean, World War II,
probably not.
Calling it shell shock.
I would say no.
And still, even to this day, people are struggling mightily. I've doing my little bit of research I've done. There's some psychedelic therapies out there, like ibogaine, that could be very useful as far as helping people with PTSD. I'm trying to ferret out. James, I'm trying to figure out. Okay, historically speaking, how did this war affect us? I mean, obviously 9/11 did.
Right. I found I don't know where my dad's medals are right at the moment, but I did find a folder on my computer where I got some images here. So
if you know his outfit, you should be able to figure out what that outfit was doing.
Right.
during the time that he served, and so that might give you fill in the pieces for you. Korea was a hell of a thing too. I mean, why we get into wars is it seems at the time as though there is no other solution at the time.
Right.
The war in Iraq was particularly complicated because it was a counterinsurgency.
Right.
Such as in Vietnam. You don't have your typical force on force, World War II type conflict anymore. Or at least not, we haven't seen. I mean, I guess the war between Russia and the Ukraine, it's a force on force right now. Let's see it. Bronze Star for meritorious achievement in ground operations against hostile forces. That's cool. Let's see. 1968. I was about 5 months old. Yeah. I got a Bronze Star medal for meritorious service myself. Not for heroism, so to speak, but just being. It was a commonly given award. Not for valor, not as though I was sending lead down range and calling the medevac and binding people's wounds and going above and beyond saving people's lives. That I was, I signed for a lot of stuff and I supervised a fair amount of people and I didn't make anyone too angry. So if you're successful, you can get that for meritorious service. And let's see, you got Purple Heart. It was after the fact. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Platoon sergeant for wounds received in action in Republic of Vietnam.
Wow. Did your father have any disability because of that?
No, I don't think so. Not that I remember. I really wish I would have thought to dig up his medals so I could have showed those to you. But oh well.
Well,
I have pictures of them somewhere. I made sure to take pictures of them just for for remembering.
And I think that this is also part and parcel of some of the issues that service members have is that by keeping silent and not telling people what their service was like,
Right.
that can create resentment. And again, some people's service could be relatively mundane, right?
Right.
And it doesn't matter what your job was, in my opinion. It is the fact that you raised your right hand and you put yourself out there so that, well, Lord knows where the military might send you.
Right.
But you may be able to determine what kind of job that you want to have, and that can be a big determinant. Of course, when you're on the FOB, the Forward Operating Base, you could get mortared, and that, or you could be traveling somewhere on the roads. Most of the casualties in Iraq and Afghanistan were caused by IEDs. Okay, here's a quiz, James. IED. Do you remember what it stands for?
Something explosive device.
Improvised explosive device. It was another.
Improvised.
Yes, because they came in. It was a cat and mouse thing, where they could take an artillery round, for example, and fasten it to the inside of a guardrail next to a road.
That's a chicken shit way of doing things, isn't it?
After their military collapsed, the armories were getting raided by the civilians, right? Because there was just no there was no authority left over. Once the regime broke down, there was no government. No one's paying the civil servants. No one's paying the garbage collectors. And so you had 50,000 Americans in Baghdad, which is a city that has 8 million people. And into this vacuum, it's like what Colin Powell once said, you break it, you own it. And so that plan was developed I don't think there was much of a plan after combat operations. And sometimes you'll get senior leaders that are toxic, that have been promoted way above their ability.
Right.
And I think some of that happened as well within the military and whatnot. Do you have family members who? You said you have family members who have served. Who else have you had that was?
Yeah, my wife's brother, stepbrother, half brother, Steve. He was in the Marine Corps. I think he stayed in long enough to retire. And I don't think he saw any action though. I don't think he ever went to any conflicts or anything.
That certainly can be too. Like I said, I was in for 17 years before, like I said, my Super Bowl happened. So let's see. Were you able to get any sense of who the character Tony was?
Tony, he was your sidekick, wasn't he?
Sort of.
Sort of. Yeah.
Yeah. You should read chapter 6. Why I Stole a Bulldozer. That's usually my my hook when I'm telling people about the book.
Right. Yeah, I remember bits and pieces of that.
There were scoundrels all over the place, whether it was politicians or the people who lived with the Arabs on the ground, or even a few of we service people are concerned. It was odd when we first got there. All of a sudden, they said, "This is going to be a dry war. No alcohol allowed."
I know, it's crazy, isn't it?
And I thought, you got to be shitting me. Name me one time in the thousands of years of was that a clown show?
That's a recent picture of Congress, and you know what Congress is, right?
What's that?
It's a large group of baboons or gorillas. A pack of gorillas, I think, is what that's called. What it stands for.
Yeah, well, we certainly have issues, especially with that debt.
Yeah, I'm still looking for pictures of my dad's medals while you're talking. Sorry.
That's all right. So, when was there ever a time in the history of human warfare where people couldn't drink?
I know it's crazy.
It seemed absolutely crazy to us. But one of the big differences between Iraq and, say, Vietnam was that because of their culture, we were kept separate from the civilian population almost exclusively. So there was no partying in town. Now, this is a Muslim country, so supposedly they don't have alcohol, which is not true. They also have the best hash in the world, but you can't.
Right.
But you can't do that. So there was no drugs, no alcohol. I lost a lot of weight because, I was from Milwaukee, okay, and you're telling me that we're not going to have beer? We're at war. We don't know when we're going home. I'm from Milwaukee, and you're telling me that we can't drink. I mean, it's like for safety. Okay, for safety. Yeah, I guess that would make sense. Fewer as far as the ossifers are concerned. Good order and discipline.
I can see where military hardware and inebriation wouldn't be a good combination. It's like guns and alcohol don't mix.
Right. You would now when you go hunting. Do you drink alcohol while you're out there?
So here's an interesting factoid about James Moffitt.
I might have you.
Here's an interesting factoid about James Moffitt that a lot of people don't know, and it's going to be very shocking to my listening audience, probably. But I don't like hunting. I don't like hunting for sport. Now, if we are, let's say Red Dawn happens, and everything goes to hell, and all the Piggly Wigglies and Publix and Food Lion and all these big box stores are raided, and all the food's gone, and you gotta resort to hunting wild animals to get meat to eat. That's a different story altogether, right? I got that. I have no problem with that. I have friends that are Second Amendment supporters. Good friend of mine, not going to mention names, but they went, I don't know, on safari somewhere, and there were pictures of them next to dead rhinos and elephants and tigers and whatever it was, whatever the wildlife was, and it's a. I've just never got into hunting, and I don't know. I have a problem with just wanton killing. You know, um, I think it's I don't know. Personally, I think it's wrong. I don't think you should do it. Well, like hunters that it's in the South, deer season. It's a big deal, right? Deer season and quail, and there are certain types of. I guess you got to buy stamps or tags or something, to be given the permission from the government to go kill those things or whatever. And so everybody that goes deer hunting that I know of, when they kill a deer, they eat it. They dress it down, use the
Take it to the butcher.
yeah, take it to the butcher, and they put food in the freezer. I don't have a problem with that. But if you're just going to kill something for the sport of it and just leave it there, or just take pictures of it so you can have your attaboy moment on your selfie on social media. I'm like, really? I mean, that's tantamount to, the movie The Purge. Humans hunting each other for, because the government says, okay, for the next 24 hours, y'all can just kill each other and just have fun. And I'm like, that makes about as much sense.
I do not have the patience to hunt. I've done it a few times, and I could see that it would be very relaxing, like fishing. But I'm just too uptight. um,
Now, I've been fishing. I sucked at it. I was raised around a lake in northeast Texas called Lake. The Indians call it Tawakoni. White people call it Tawakoni, right? And I was raised around a lake, and my dad had a 17-foot Bonita tri-hull green boat with an outdoor motor, and he had my butt under that boat every summer cleaning the bottom of the boat with Brillo pads. God, I hated him for that. But anyway.
did he take you fishing after you cleaned the bottom of the boat with a Brillo pad?
He took all of us, me, my mother, and my sister and I. We went out on the boat. We didn't go fishing, I don't think, but he loved to go fast. And my mother was always bitching at him for going too fast. And it's really funny because everybody that I know that owns a boat, they love to just level that thing out and just slam into the waves. And I'm like, I got a good friend of mine that's got a jet boat that we go out on one of these, these lakes around here, and he's got that thing wide open, and I'm like, man, can we just slow down a little bit and just enjoy nature? But that's fun to them, opening that thing wide open. It's kind of like NASCAR on water, right? Just open that thing up and go as fast as you can.
Yeah, I guess it's the way of the world. It's just like you're not supposed to drink while you're boating. You're not supposed to drink when you're driving or hunting, and now you're not supposed to drink when you're at war. But for us, it seemed kind of sacrilegious, and
Sure.
there was. I should probably just stop talking about that subject whatsoever. But
What,
because,
sacrilegious?
well, um, let's just say that there were a lot of scoundrelly things that were happening in Iraq, and to the one thing I've learned never to say to my fiance is, the idea of the most important thing is not to get caught. Don't say that to a woman, okay? Because
Right.
she's gonna figure, even if you're saying it in jest, just take my advice. Don't ever say that.
It's
However,
like telling them to calm down. Just calm down.
yeah, or when someone's very angry, tell them to stop swearing.
Right. Yeah. I get in trouble with my wife all the time when I drop the F-bomb. She's heard it so many times now. She don't even say anything anymore after 35 years. And I try not to curse around her because I know she doesn't like it, and I try to respect that. And but when you get angry about something, sometimes you just can't be angry and not put an exclamation point on the issue.
Yeah, she's learned now to I'm going to rage for about 20 seconds. I'm going to get it out of my system, and then
Only
in an hour from now, I won't even remember that I was upset.
Right.
Right. So we talked. I'm glad that we hit upon the woman with the purple finger, and there was
the sound effects were pretty special too. Listening to the audiobook, whomp whomp, boom, and I kind of giggled when I first heard it. I was like, "What? Why are they doing that?"
Yeah, my editor, my producer, should I say, when we were recording the audiobook, he said, "Do you want to use any sound effects?" He asked me, and it had never occurred to me. I'm like, "You can do that?" He's like, "It's your book, Kenny. Yeah, we can do whatever you want."
Right.
And so we sprinkled a few things in there, particularly in the beginning, to kind of get the listeners' attention. The sound of gunfire, and there's different sounds. If it's a 105 millimeter howitzer, an artillery, where it's the bang, and then how many seconds later is the boom. You could actually, if you're being mortared, sometimes you could even hear the whistle as it's descending. It's a different sound from different calibers.
Did you ever watch the movie Patriot with Mel Gibson in it?
Sure.
Yeah. Do you remember the scene? I was on Pastor's house when we were watching it one time, and he had a DVR, and he would slow it down where that big round ball was headed toward this guy's head, and then it hit it and knocked his head off of his body. We're such a sadistic society, but it was, boy, you want to talk about bloody, good Lord, and they're all lining up, in a straight format with on each side with muskets, and they're loading and take aim, fire, and just shooting at each other. It's like, holy crap. Yeah, that was brutal.
Well, let me ask you a question. Why didn't they? So, what was the name of the movie?
Patriot. I think it was The Patriot.
The Patriot, right? Okay. Well,
yeah.
If America had lost the war, then Mel Gibson would have had made a movie called The Insurgent. Because if you win, you're the Patriots, right?
Right.
But I compared the war in Iraq to the American War of Independence. That's what we call it. But the British were fighting a counterinsurgency. Eventually, they just ran out of money. They just couldn't sustain the effort anymore. And they had some military defeats. And they said, okay, we're going to come back in about 20 or 30 years and kick your ass again. And America was like, okay, but leave now. And they had that wonderful Second Amendment because, holy shit, we're going to need the militia to stand up once again. That's a big reason I think the Second Amendment was written as it was. People were using it for food, and it was important that you had an armed citizenry because under King George III, you couldn't have weapons. I think we discussed that on our first
Right.
first
Right.
conversation, is that the first thing that the tyrant wants to do is get rid of your guns.
Yeah, they don't want you. They don't want you to be able to fight back.
Right. And
That's
so
that's,
when
that's
we
what Hitler did when he was rounding up the Jews. He took all their guns.
yeah, the same issue came up to America trying to administer an entire country the size of Texas with got 35 million people in it. Are you going to try to disarm the population? And the answer was no. You could have your AK-47 and sidearms, but anything else, we told the civilians, you got to turn in. We're going to be very upset if we find rockets or mortars, artillery rounds, anything of a big caliber. You're going to end up the man of the house is going to end up be taking a little vacation to Abu Ghraib prison for a while until we can get it straightened out. But at least we knew that you couldn't just strip the people of weapons. And of course, with Saddam Hussein gone, now people could have weapons and defend themselves. And boy, did they! It was a shit show from the beginning, because at nighttime we were inside our bases, and the people could run rampant, and they did. It was very chaotic. What other things did little things, little nuggets that may have occurred to you as you were listening to the book?
Well, I mean, I've never been in the military, and I've never been in country, out of country, whatever you want to call it. Never been in a conflict like that. Never been afraid for my life, because I'm worried about somebody shooting at me or shooting mortars or guns or whatever. And so, you kind of brought to life the day-to-day grind, so to speak. And it was interesting to read the process of hopping in vehicles and traveling from one point to the next, and how it took a long time sometimes to get from point A to point B. And I can't remember all the names of the cities and stuff that you outlined in the book, because I don't really know the geography over there and all of that. But it was from a civilian standpoint, it was interesting to kind of get a feel for what you experienced.
You've heard the phrase going downrange?
Yep.
Okay, so the way that we would say it in the Army is that if you're going downrange, it meant you're actually going to theater. You're going to Iraq or Afghanistan, and you've been on ranges before, obviously. Whether you have a automated target or just
Right.
have you ever done paper
Sure.
targets?
Oh, yeah.
So what do? They got to clear the firing line, make sure all the weapons are clear.
Cold. Range is cold.
And then you walk downrange to your paper target to score it. And the feeling that you have, James, when you're in front of the weapons is kind of a eerie, spooky kind of a sensation, because you're in front of all the weapons. Now the weapons, there's no one handling them. There's no round in the chamber, nothing like that. But that's where you get that saying that you're going downrange. It's that eerie feeling where you are subject to, well, you're taking a risk.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did you see the movie? What was the movie? It was one of the Jack Reacher movies. You like Jack Reacher?
Who's the actor that?
Mission Impossible guy. What's his name? Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise. No, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not a Tom Cruise guy. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got to watch the Jack Reacher movies. I think there's 2 or 3 of them. Anyway, in one of the movies, the guy, ex-military, he was arrested for killing somebody. He went on he quote unquote went on a killing spree, active shooter, from a building, a bridge, whatever. It was supposed to be a parking garage, and he killed like I don't know 10 people, something like that. And so he was in jail, and they were interrogating him, and he wrote on a piece of paper, I'll only talk to Jack Reacher." So this is a spoiler alert. You'll see it if you watch it. But anyway, it's a really good movie. It's an action flick, and with you having been in the military, you'll really appreciate a lot of his stuff. But so he said, "I'll only talk to Jack Reacher," and they were like, "Who the hell's Jack Reacher?" And so Jack Reacher shows up on the scene, talks to the DA, talks to the homicide detective, blah blah blah. So as he's tracking down who actually the shooter was, he wound up going in Virginia. It was like I don't know, it was like a 2 hour drive. He borrowed this attorney's car and made the 2 hour drive, and it was a shooting range, outdoor shooting range that was like 1, 2, or 3 miles, a long distance, right? Because they're shooting high-powered rifles, and so he was going down range to put his target up. You know, it was like a football field away, something like that, 100 yards. And he looked back to see what the range owner was doing, because there was a lot of tension between him and that range owner. And the range owner said that he would talk to him about the actual shooter if he could put 3 rounds in a bullseye of that size, And so he was walking out to put his paper target up, and he kind of looked back and was checking things out, thinking, "Ooh, I wonder what the chances of him putting a bullet in the back of my head are."
Right.
And so yeah, it's kind of a creepy, spooky feeling of going, well, I know the range is supposed to be cold, but is some yahoo going to accidentally or unintentionally or intentionally pick up a rifle and chamber around and start taking pot shots? You're like, ah.
Yeah, it'd be impossible to tell. Well, let me ask you, as far as movies are concerned, have you seen American Sniper?
I think I did.
With
Yes.
Bradley Cooper?
Wasn't that Navy SEAL that got killed by one of the guys that he was working with that had PTSD or something? He was a famous Navy SEAL. I forget what his name is. Wasn't in Texas or something he was from?
Yeah, he was from Texas.
Can't think of his name.
It'll come to me in a moment.
Okay.
But I bring that up because in that story, he was a highly trained soldier, and when he was home, he wanted to be overseas with his troopers. And when he was overseas, he wanted to be home. And it goes to my argument that it doesn't really matter what you're doing overseas, what your job is. You still have that other 50% of your reality, in that your family is on the other side of the planet.
Right.
And so it doesn't really matter. Well, let me put it this way. If there's something wrong at home, it's really hard to do your job.
Right.
If you're at home but your son is out there, is 5 years old and he's lighting fires, I'm sure you were very well behaved when your father was overseas. How old were you when your father was in Vietnam?
My mother was a tyrant, so I didn't get away with a whole lot. I was 6 or 7, something like that. I was born in 61, 68, so I was about 7 years old. Yeah.
So now that's
I was 7
bothering.
years old when he went to Vietnam.
7 years old? And did you have a chance to talk to him? Yeah, Chris Kyle was the name of the...
Right.
I mean, in Iraq, it was the first time that people could email their, back home and actually call. What was the communication like between you and your father in Vietnam?
None. I don't think my mother even talked to him. When he was there, I don't think they had any communications other than maybe letters. They might have exchanged letters. And I remember growing up, my mother was from Austria, so she had relatives in Austria, in Germany. And I remember the letters we would get in the mail. It had the red and white stripes around the edges because it was international mail. And I remember my mother went to the Catholic chapel in Terrell, Texas, that was open 24 hours a day, and she would go light candles for my dad and pray for him. And she brought his kids with her, and I remember that.
I can imagine why.
And
You're praying to God that your father doesn't die. I mean, that sounds
my
pretty.
sister and I didn't. My sister and I didn't pray, but my mother did. So we'd sit in the background and we were quiet, or she was going to beat us when we got back home.
When we got to Iraq, which was the first inning of the second game of the doubleheader, this is from the Gulf War to the war in Iraq. The first thing we did as engineers is we started to build our internet cafe. And our signal officer, it took him several months in order to be able to get connectivity. But what a difference. I mean, again, okay, so now you can't drink beer. However, you got email. And we had a few satellite phones. And so you would sign up for your 15-minute time slot. And I think the battalion with 500 people had 2. And so you would sign up, and then if it was Thursday at 3 a.m., you got a 15-minute time slot. You'd get up and call Honey back home.
Hope she answers.
And that was significantly, that was a vast improvement historically as far as the communication between family and friends and service people actually, overseas and whatnot. And I don't know if it helped her. I mean, it helped in a certain sense, but not knowing what's going on at home. I mean, it's weird. It's like if you were on harrowing missions, what are you going to tell the people back home? I mean, if your father was, what was the infantry division? He started at the 7th, and it's on the Purple Heart citation.
Right, I closed all that now.
So I think that if you're going through a hard time, maybe you do not want to communicate, and maybe that just perpetuates, it's like a snowballing effect.
Well, I know that. I don't know if I know this from the movies that I've seen from Vietnam, or if he said this or whatever. But I know that the infantry, the Viet Cong, they had these tunnels underground, right?
Oh yeah.
And they had to go. They had to ferret them out. And I think they had dogs. They had some dogs. I forget the breed of dog or whatever. But they'd send a dog down there or whatever. And sometimes you'd be told go down there and go get them. They'd go down there and pop smoke or whatever and find the enemy and kill them. And I couldn't imagine no, you go down there and go kill them. I'll stand out here and I'll watch your 6. But no, I wouldn't. No, that's dangerous.
Yeah, the war in Vietnam. Of course, I enlisted in 1987, and so I think that's Wait a minute, 1987. And I was worried that my war was going to be like the war in Vietnam, where you come back and it's, why was a sacrifice made?
Yeah, they did not get a hero's response at all.
Well, there was 58,000 plus were killed, and you can quadruple that to the number of people that were injured, plus all the the mental hurt that came about from that. But I remember thinking to myself, I really hope the politicians don't jack this up, and that my war doesn't end up being something that becomes historically perceived as being a waste of time.
Right.
Because how demoralizing that would be. The best I can say right now is that it was a mixed bag. I don't know how much. It's been about 15 years. since we completely popped smoke and got out of there. But again, that was Vietnam was a counterinsurgency, but there was no way for the United States to win that conflict. It was like Afghanistan. My God, it was going on for 20 years. And I was dreading, I'm like, one of these days, there's going to be some kid who was born after 9/11 that ends up in the Marine Corps, ends up in Afghanistan, ends up getting killed. And then it will be truly a generational war where you're there for, well, it was 20 years in Afghanistan. It's hard to fathom. And
did you watch MASH?
I memorized MASH.
I love that show. And do you remember what the intro music was about?
Yeah, it's a song called "Suicide is Painless."
Yeah, I didn't realize it until I was.
It's a morbid ass song.
Well into my adulthood when I discovered that, I was like, "Crap, really? I didn't know that." But yeah, they had some pretty interesting characters playing those roles.
And there were some scoundrelly things that went on as well.
Yeah,
you got to be very careful when you're conducting inventories of military equipment, because
Radar O'Reilly, he could get anything.
But he wasn't a thief.
No,
you know,
no,
if you have,
he knew how to barter. He knew how to
barter. For us, you know, there's a story in the an account really early on in the book on my platoon sergeant when he took 2 Massey Ferguson tractors, and we knew. I mean, these are big earth moving pieces of equipment. How a transportation unit got a hold of them, we don't know. But they had them, and we wanted them. So it went to the boldest of the lot. And James, just remember, if you want to steal something, always do it in the hottest part of the day. Right?
Yeah.
Like right now here in Knoxville, it's going to be like over 100 degrees.
Yeah, it's been cooking here.
I bet I could go to City Hall, take the flag down off the flagpole and walk away, and no one would say a damn thing.
Right.
Nobody cares when it's 120 degrees outside what you're doing. But I was in a unit where it was a hodgepodge. We were cross-leveled. So of the 550 people in the engineer battalion, a third were from all over the United States. And so we didn't know each other. And after we got home, we know we'd never see these people again. So there was a mantra where it was like, hey, you know, if you don't guard something, if you don't bolt it to a concrete pad, if you don't chain it up and lock it, to us it was like, well, did you really want it? You know, because, and there's a tradition in the military, like the 82nd the 82nd Airborne, right, with their red berets. Biggest thieves in the Army. And they've been that way since World War II. Talking about movies, did you ever see a movie called Kelly's Heroes? With
I don't know. I think I've heard of it, but I don't know if I saw it. It was a long time ago.
Clint Eastwood. It was a comedy. It'd be worth seeing again. But there was a lot of scoundrelly behavior that takes place in the military. And of course, the special forces guys are the best or the worst, because just to highlight it, there was a incident where early on, and you may have read it, where one of my soldiers, an E4, went to the PX and he saw a Cadillac with its engine running. Just running. I mean, you've got military vehicles everywhere, but here's a Cadillac that's just, the engine's running. So the kid jumps in and drives off, comes back to our life support area, and my platoon sergeant, Hank Molina, sees this, says, "What the hell's wrong with you? who'd you steal this from? The kid tells him the story. They open up the trunk, and there's AK-47s, there's RPGs, there's all different kinds of munitions. And it's like, you dumbass, you just stole this from the Special Forces guys. So they drove the Cadillac back to the PX. And sure enough, the Special Forces guys were there. And it was, there's apologies for youthful indiscretion. I'm sorry that you stole what you stole. Right? And those guys those guys could not get into trouble. It's impossible. Whatever they did, it was going to be okay.
That's funny. Hey, so I think we're at 73 minutes now, so I think we're going to need to wrap this up. But I certainly had fun talking to you about all this. I enjoyed your book, and I'd love to read you said you got 3 out now, or 2?
I have a second one is called Pinup Dolls and Classic Cars, a COVID love story.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So it touches upon COVID is the bad guy. But if you, I don't know if you're a car guy, but if you've been to car shows, sometimes you'll see pinup dolls there too.
Right.
And so,
who doesn't appreciate a beautiful car and a beautiful woman?
Right, absolutely. And the two need each other. It's a symbiotic relationship, because if you're a gearhead, you want pictures of your baby. What's better than to have a picture of your muscle car with a beautiful girl? Nothing. That's a pinnacle. At the same time, the pinup doll, she wants her picture taken too. And what's better than to be modeling in front of a muscle car? So the two go together like peas and
peanut butter and jelly.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
And so I had my characters, and I put them in interesting situations, and then dun dun dun, COVID happens, and I magically take you back to the spring of 2020 when it all went to shit. Everybody wants to remember that, right?
Right. All right. So to my listening audience, I'm going to say I'm sorry this episode took so long, but maybe I'll break it in 2 pieces. Maybe it'll be part 1 and part 2 or something like that. Kenny, thank you for being here, and thank you for your service, and thank you for sharing your experiences with us. And I wish you well. And I'll talk to everybody later. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.